Who's this? Oh, you're an entrepreneur? Oh, you're a real estate investor. Oh, you're trying to learn from those who did it. Well, come into the lab then. Put your white coat on, gloves on, notepad, and let's build, y'all.
Real estate experiment. What is happening, y'all? Today I have a pleasure of having Tony Javier step into the lab with us, which again, every time we have folks like Tony step into the lab, they're experimenters, they're practitioners, and I'm so excited to have Tony here with me, dialing in from San Diego. Am I correct, Tony?
San Diego, California. Sunny San Diego, my friend.
I mean, he's glowing over here, man. I'm a little jealous here because we got a little storm here. We're here in New York, and we got a little cloud and a little heat wave. But I miss La Jolla, and I haven't been out there in a long time. But man, you look great. Thanks for coming into the lab with us, as we call it. I got to put some things into context because we have a lot of people step in here, but you are no like other, right? You've been doing your thing for over 20 years now, flipped over close to 1,000 units, which is a lot. That's a lot. When I do the math, that's about like what, 50 a year if we do the math. I mean, that's very interesting. And then you have an Inc. 500 company in real estate, and then you call yourself the professional home buyers, which is obviously you've kind of perfected that. So I'm very curious to hear about your systems. But last but not least is we talk about this whole TV thing that we're going to talk about, where you're really leveraging social, and you even used the word before, repurposing content. You're the first person who's come on this show and be like, hey, Ruben, can I hit the record button? Because, we have a strategy here. We're going to repurpose the content. So good for you. Welcome into the lab. This is going to be another special digital real estate series. Tony, who was Tony before, man? Before all this, before we get to all the highlight reels, man, like who was Tony? I like to know the person behind the business first, man.
Yeah, man. I don't know. I'm just, I'm a pretty simple guy. I'm just doing a lot of good things. I've been in real estate 20 years now. Before real estate, I waited tables, went to college, and just stumbled across real estate 20 years ago. Guy on TV by the name of Carlton Sheets, no down payment system. I think most of the OGs in the space have heard of him. Some of you newer investors or younger investors may not have heard of him, but he was doing infomercials back in like the 80s. So ironically, I found him from TV, and that's my specialty is TV marketing for real estate investors. So yeah, I've been doing real estate for 20 years now. I've got a 2-year-old boy at home, and just love him to death. And I'm in California living life. I invest in Wichita, Kansas mainly. And then I'm also getting into multiple markets now with TV, and I help other real estate investors around the country with TV now. So love real estate, eat it, breathe it, and just love it, man. So I'm glad to be on here and share some of my experiences with you.
Yeah. When did you get the itch, Tony? Because I think everybody has an interesting story how they got into real estate. You said you were waiting tables, you were doing a bunch of that. Like, when did you get that? I mean, it sounded like you watched an infomercial, but was that the seed that was planted, or was there other things that came along the way? Or was that one thing that you kind of came across, then ignored, then came around it again? Like, what was that seed?
No. Once I found real estate, I was hooked. So I saw the infomercial. If you guys remember it, I think he was one of the first, or he's definitely the first one I remember using testimonials to his advantage. Like, he would have people on the screen that would say, started in real estate 5 years ago. I now make, $250,000 a year, and I own 100 properties. And, you hear all these testimonials, and you're like, okay, these are good, but whatever, I'll buy it. Even if I, buy a few properties or whatever, and at the time I was like, when I bought it, I'm like, man, if I could just own 30 properties, that would be so cool. Just like 30 rental properties. So the course was no down payment system, and it taught you how to buy properties with no money down. Mm-hmm. And so within, I know the dates. I bought the program in April. In September, I believe, was when I closed my first deal. It was basically September 2001. So 9/11, I remember that, obviously. And so, so first 2 properties I bought with, the last 1,000 I pretty much bought with no money down. I paid cash for some properties and done some alternative financing, but basically I've used the system to buy properties and raise money so that I don't have to come up with money for my deals. And now I actually have a funding business where I fund properties for other people as well. But yeah, that's how I got in the game. Just, people think to themselves, like, I I can't get into real estate. I don't have the money to do it. What they don't realize is they can utilize other people's money to do deals. And I've done it, with tens of millions of dollars worth of real estate. So once I found that program, I was hooked. I went through the program. I just jumped into it head first. I didn't go full time for about a year to 2 years. I had to get going. I had to get my real estate license, sell real estate for a little bit. But after that, once I got my feet going, I actually dropped out of school with 9 hours left to graduate, and I never graduated. So,
Oh, wow. What was that, high school or?
No, that was college.
College. Interesting.
Yeah.
Now I'm trying to put my time dates together. Interesting. So, wow, that's really interesting. So, just to give people some context when you hear no money down, and we're not going to spend too much time on this, but it is important to put some things into perspective. Are we talking hard money? Are we talking borrowed money from private money? Like, what are we talking about when you say no money down? Just because I think that'll be a good blueprint to live to our listeners.
Yeah. So the first 2 deals, I'll give you an example. My dad co-signed on the first loan, gave me the down payment, and closed on it that way. So no money down. Got him first mortgage with a traditional bank. And then the second deal, at the time, you could get 100% financing if you bought the property cheap enough through a traditional lender, so like Wells Fargo. So they would use the after repair value as long as the after repair value was 80%, and then you could fit your repairs and your purchase within that 80%. They didn't make you put any money down, and you could do those loans for quite a bit.
So those would cover the sorry to cut you off, Tony. Those would cover the repair costs as well. Where you would factor that in?
Purchase price, repair costs, and then once I was done with the property, I would refinance it, and then I would actually get cash back. So that first deal, I think I got, or the second deal with Wells Fargo, I think I got $10,000 cash back after I was done, because I ended up refinancing it and keeping it long term. So I did BRRRR before BRRRR was even a thing. Yeah. And so I did that with my first, I think, 10 properties. And then, like I said, I was selling real estate at the time. And then now it's just private money lenders. I've got 20 to 30 private money lenders at any time that I can send deals to. I can get funding within 24 to 48 hours. And so rather than, using cash on my own deals, now I take my money and invest it in other people's deals, and help them do deals as well. So it's kind of interesting how one business I've turned around and been able to, be on the other side of it from a lending perspective. And now, as we're probably going to jump into TV, you'll see I'm on the other side with TV, helping other people get on TV like someone did for me 9 years ago.
So let me ask you, Tony, are you still, because I think what we like, and what's helpful in the lab too is just, understanding the different experiments that you have to go through. One is education. You experimented with that. You doubled down on that, which is important. And then you did the flipping, turnkey. Like, let me ask you, are these still, because it sounds like you've transitioned into different phases. Are you adding pillars to your war chest, or are you transitioning out of these phases in your real estate? I'm curious. How do you go about these opportunities as an operator and as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, what I've realized is I'm an entrepreneur by heart. I am not a traditional business owner, meaning that I don't like to be stuck in a business for a long period of time. I was, quote unquote, stuck in my first business for 13 years, and it was probably 10 years too long.
Which one was that?
That's my flipping business. So, first 10 years of my business, I did flipping and rentals. So I kind of consider those two different businesses. And so, 10 years in, I found someone that had a real estate investing business that didn't look at houses, didn't meet with contractors, had a business where he was 90% hands off. And at the time I'm like, there's no way he's not looking at houses. There's no way he's not meeting with contractors. I'm like, you have to do all that to keep control of your business. And so anyway, hired him as a coach, bought into his program. And within 3 years, I was in the same position where I didn't meet with contractors. I didn't meet with sellers. And I still, to this day, I work a few hours a week in my real estate investing, flipping business and rental business, and have my team run it. And since then, I've started a co-working business, a lending business. I now have a TV production business. So my thing is I like to dive into a business, start it, hire people, get it systemized, get it running, and then step out of it and figure out what the next phase is.
Yeah.
So I'm not, I'm a real estate guy, but really I'm just an entrepreneur that,
similar.
that
I can see they got the bug.
Loves the vision, man. I love having a
No.
vision and putting it into place.
So let me ask you, because I'm keeping tracks here. So you do the flipping, and then that helps you. Then you realize is that when you did also the renting or the long term? Did you do like a turnkey model as well? It sounds like
turnkey for myself. So I would buy them, flip them, and then keep them for myself. So I did the first 10 properties I kept myself, and then I started flipping and selling them shortly after. So.
And was that just you had to like? I'm just trying to understand your mindset at the time. Is it when you're selling these, you have the next vision already, or you're thinking, were you already what were you going through? What was the strategy when you were already selling these assets that you had? Was it just to flip more and get more capital? What was it?
Oh man, that was 20 years ago. I don't remember my mindset at that point, but I do know that I was getting cash back at closing on my deals because I'd buy them cheap enough that when I refinanced them, I'd get 10 to 20,000 back on these deals. And that's one of the reasons I kept them. I'm like, I don't want to pay taxes. I'll just get tax-free money back and, use that for whatever I need to continue my business. But, like I said at the time, like when I first started, I'm like, man, if I could just have 30 properties, that would be so cool. And, at the peak, I think I had like 130, 140 properties that I had as rentals. I've sold some of those off since then, but it's just interesting how your perspective changes over time. You think there's no way I could meet this mark. And then 3 years, 5 years down the road, you hit it and you're like, oh man, what's next? And then you hit these other milestones, and it's like, the good thing about entrepreneurs is that, true entrepreneurs is that they're never satisfied. But the bad thing about being an entrepreneur is you're never satisfied. So it's kind of interesting. You hit these milestones you never think you could, but then you're like, well, what's next? What can I do? What can I do bigger and better? So.
Awesome. All right. So listen, I want to transition into one of the things I'm really interested in as well. As we're going to get to, I'm saving the best for last here, but I want to touch on a few things because what I do like, and it sounds like you're doing is obviously you systematized your businesses where you're working in them and then you work on them and then you have someone just really manage it. And I'm curious on that. I want to touch on this for the private money lending. Is that something you're still actively doing today?
Do you mean for my deals or for other people's
deals?
Other
people's deals.
Yeah. I started that a couple of years ago. I had a hard money lender come to me, a friend that was in my mastermind group. And he's like, hey, I can get a bunch of people approved for first mortgage lending, but for some reason, they get these deals under contract and they just can't figure out how to find the down payment money. And so he's like, I came up with kind of a way to do it. He goes, I funded a couple deals myself. He goes, would you like to fund some of these? And I said, oh, sure, why not? So I did a bunch of them over a year and a half period.
And those like bridge loans or something like that?
Some people call them bridge loans, basically just down payments. If someone can get 90% financing, they need 10% down and 100% of renovations, that I lend them the 10% down payment plus the closing cost to help them complete the transaction. So I take a second position in the property and help them in that way. And now I'm doing first positions as well. But so that's a huge need for people. There's something that nobody else does on a large level. You have some individual investors that do it, that kind of thing, but nobody does that on a large scale. So I started a company last year specifically to do those down payments. So I think we're the only investor that I know that does true gap funding for real estate investors taking second positions in properties. So,
and how large for our listeners, how large are we talking for an amount? If I'm thinking I'm listening to this and I want to tap into that company.
We try and stay below 100,000 because we're trying to do as many as we can and distribute, because I'm using my own money on these deals, and then I also bring some of my private lenders in on these deals. We'll eventually have a bigger pool of money we can pull from, but yeah, anything under 100,000 we'll look at eventually. Once we get more money, we can look at bigger deals. But our typical deal is about $50,000 for a down payment for a real estate investor.
Absolutely. And what's a quick plug that you want to give? Because I know you have a lot of companies and for this one in particular, that's one I didn't know of in particular for our listeners right now.
Yeah, Gap Funding Solutions.
Okay.
You can go there. I think it redirects to my personal page where you can see my Gap Funding company and how we do it. So yeah, you can apply there, and my team will look at your deal and see if we can help you get it funded.
Got it. Got it. So bringing things full circle, you experiment. You're starting your real estate. You watch a video. It's an infomercial, and to bring it full circle today, if you're listening to this right now, is June 2021, and I did a double take when my team brought. I saw TV, and I'm like, TV. Okay, hold on. I thought TV was dead. Tony, what's going on here? You're leveraging TV in 2021 to get deals. I mean, that sounds like, that sounds antique. Help us out here. What is this formula that you're using that's still working, and how is it working?
Yeah. So your thought is what a lot of people think. So people think when TV, they think it's outdated. They think that it's too expensive. They think that there's this huge production. Like there's all these thoughts on TV, and I think that is why no one really does it. Like there's no really. If you look at your market, chances are there's nobody doing TV, or there might be one. I've only heard of a couple markets that more than one person's doing TV, so that it's completely wide open. If you look at texting, cold calling, postcards, dozens, if not hundreds of investors in any given market are doing the same methods, right? So 9 years ago, I went to a poker game, and it was a friend of a friend, and he invited another friend. And well, there was like 10 of us there, but the other friend happened to be on TV. And when I saw him, I had the celebrity factor of like, oh man, this guy's on TV, right? And I'm like, oh man, I can't believe I'm playing poker with this guy. It's pretty cool. And so he ended up being a normal guy. We were, shooting the shit. And I asked him, I said, how are your TV commercials doing? And he goes, oh my gosh, you're kidding me. He's like, that's the best thing we've ever done. We're doing like $2 million worth of business just off our TV commercials. This is just a residential construction company, right? And he's like, you know what? Maybe it'd be good for you. Maybe TV would be good for you. Why don't you call my media guy? He can probably help you get on TV. And so this was 2012. And so, me being a guy of action, I called him, and he's like, yeah, we can get you on TV. We can, for probably $3,000, but, we can start with a $3,000 budget and see what, go from there. So long story short, he did the media buying for me. He did the production. I had to give him, my information. I had to write the scripts, that kind of stuff. So I had to do my end of it. And then first month we spent $3,000. We made 35 grand in the first month, and we're popping deals, from day one. And you ask if TV is dead. Last year we had our best year. We did 11.2 times return on our money on TV. And it was the channel we spent the least time on. I spent 3 hours last year on TV, and that's shooting a couple new commercials because of COVID. I just did, some soft, tough times. We call tough times commercials. We looked at my ad spend a little bit, met with my media guy that I just told you about. Other than that, my team we did deals. I didn't even have to shoot the commercials, honestly, because our ads did pretty well, and we just wanted to freshen it up. So, I'd like to talk about the top 5 benefits of TV if you don't mind me jumping into those. And
you beat me to the punch, right? You're throwing me an alley-oop here, because I was going to say, okay, so because it's all about mindset, right? So I'm listening to you and I'm like, this is like, okay, poof, like a huge, you guys who are listening on the podcast, I was shaking my head the entire time as Tony is saying this, because my limiting belief is being, shut down as Tony is speaking. So please enlighten us. Tell us the benefits that most of us are overlooking when it comes to TV.
Well, first of all, to finish the answer to your question, is TV dead? You think about it. Older people grew up watching TV. That is our demographic. They're going to be watching TV for a long period of time. And even the younger generation, as they get older, streaming and all that, we're still on YouTube TV and Hulu and those kind of things. So if somebody has streaming, that doesn't mean that they don't see our commercials. So anyway, I have more than 10 benefits, but for the sake of podcast, I just like to cover 5 just to kind of get the point across, right? So the first one is credibility. If you think of all of the big brands that chances are you've seen them on TV, right? You've seen You know, I like to talk about cereal commercials. Those are the easiest ones. Tony the Tiger, you're great. Or they're great. Lucky Charms, magically delicious, right? If you see those in the store, you automatically trust them. You could find the cheaper stuff and maybe more healthy stuff down below, but chances are you're probably going to buy those name brands because you've seen them on TV. So the credibility factor of being on TV, you're going to blow your competition away if you have to compete with them. We get people all the time that say, you know what, we don't know Joe Schmo. You know, they called us, they whatever, but we seen you on TV. We're going to go with you, even if we offered a little bit less. We've sent postcards the same time some other people have, and they're like, we called you and only you because we know you from TV. And a lot of our clients throughout the country are now saying the same thing, that they're getting the same feedback. So just a ton of credibility. People feel like they know you once they see you on TV, right? So 2 is, I already mentioned a little bit, little to no competition. Like you look at any market, again, there's dozens to hundreds of investors fighting over the same deals, buying the same lists. And TV, there's very little competition. So in any market, you know, you could have probably another 5 to 10 people on TV and still not saturate the market. So there's a lot of room for it. And luckily, we have the formula for it. So most people feel like it's too expensive. And then when they get quotes from TV stations, they get quoted the prime time high dollar rates. So it makes it impossible for most people to get on TV because they think it's really expensive, when if they have the formula like we do, we know what works, and it's usually the cheap stuff. So we get people on the air very inexpensive, and we buy the cheap stuff. So there's little to no competition because of the barrier of entry. It's very, very high. Number 3 is pretty standard, high return on investment. You know, like I said, we got 11.2x return on our money last year. And, you know, even in some of the other years, it's at least 5x return. So the return is very high, especially considering, which is number 4, high return on time. So for me, as you probably already know from what I've said, is I love automating things. So, you know, the automation part of TV is incredible. If you're texting, you're cold calling, you're doing postcards, pretty much all other forms of marketing require a lot of tweaking, a lot of buying lists, a lot of managing. Whereas TV, when you get a commercial that works, which usually we do right out of the gate because we have scripts that we know worked really well, it's set it and forget it. You know, you don't have to do a lot with it except for maybe once or twice a year, maybe do a new ad if you want to and test some new things. But you know, for me, I've had the same commercial run up to 18 months without changing the commercial. So the automation part of it, I really like. And then the 5th thing I'll talk about is high quality leads. So everybody knows that when they're doing texting, cold calling, and you even get this with postcards, you just get a lot of tire kickers, right? I mean, it's easy to text back and say, yes, I want an offer on my house, when you know half of them are just wanting to know what their house is worth, or just if you give them full price retail, they'll maybe think about selling. So when people see you on TV, for them to take their phone, pull it out, dial the phone number, and actively call you instead of you reaching out to them, that becomes a much more high quality lead. The tire kickers, you don't get as much. You're going to get some of that, of course, but the chances of getting a low quality lead becomes much less. And then I'll give you a bonus. And the bonus is that you close deals a lot easier, because if they already have seen you on TV, they already feel like they know you, like you, and trust you. And so just like I said with, you know, cereal, you know, in the supermarket, you already feel like you know them, trust them. You don't necessarily have to research them and read the box and who is this Frosted Flakes guy. Yeah. It's like you already know it. You already know the guy on TV. So so those are what I like to talk about with TV. And it's incredible that not many other people do it. And honestly, when I did it actually even to today, like people, the most experienced investors that I've talked to still say the same thing. I've never heard anybody talk about TV commercials for real estate.
Yeah. You know, what's remarkable, Tony, is like when you're speaking, it just hit me. It goes back to the marketing basics, right? It's who is your avatar and where are they hanging out, right? And I think what we're doing sometimes when we're thinking of, oh, who's spending time on TV, we're not really thinking, we're thinking about ourselves, or maybe we're not really thinking about who our target audience is, right? And so that is, I mean, it's extremely important to really point that out. And then the second part is the authoritative figure, which is, we were just talking about this. I was just on a marketing podcast. We were talking about that, just the, building the rapport. And, to your point, when you're on TV, the credibility check mark is there. I mean, the things that it took for you to get on TV, it's like you've already been verified, right? And another thing that just, again, you're kind of awakening me here, and I hope the listeners, are taking this in right now, right? Is you're giving, and when they're reaching back out to you, it's one thing that, one of my coaches says this all the time: you want to close on the sale call, not sell. They're already sold, right? Because they're the one reaching out to you. And so just to echo those words again, I just think it's just so important what you said, and it's really enlightening. But let me ask you, because before we were on the air, you said texting is dying. It's so funny because you would think in this day and age, you feel like texting is where people are going now, right? Because emails, no one's starting to read those. Texting. What are your thoughts on that, though? It sounded like you actually had a different perspective. That no, Ruben, it was texting is starting to. Do you feel that texting is going in the direction of emails, or do you feel that that's not even the prime digital real estate anymore? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, you can mark my word on this. By the end of 2021, and if not by end of 2021, in 2022, texting will be pretty much dead. And the reason being is that everybody, okay, so say you're listening to a podcast, you're a new investor, and someone says, okay, all you have to do is go buy a list, go to this text platform and upload the list, put your text messages in there, and you can start sending text messages. Literally in less than 7 days, if not within 48 to 72 hours, you're a real estate investor, because you can just start blasting people, right? So because of that, it's become very annoying to people to get, I called an attorney, I don't know, it was about a year ago about something, and he saw my phone number and it came up as something real estate for some reason. I don't know why, it was random. And he texted me this nasty message back. And he's like, quit calling me, and like something. And I'm like, hey, someone referred me to you for a case. Like, I need to talk to you. And he's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like, people are just so sick of getting text message. Even me, like, I'll get a text message, and even though, I know the game, like, I still get a little bit annoyed, but I understand it more. So I respect it, and I don't text back and say anything nasty to them, but people are getting upset. So text message carriers, AT&T and all those, are putting filters on text messages so they can know they kind of know if it's spam, and they're blocking a lot of messages. And then there's regulations coming out. Absolutely. I think it's July or August, where the fines are going up, and it's going to continue to get worse and worse. And so I talked to some of the highest biggest educators in the space, and they're saying the same thing. They're like, we coach these people, we see the regulations, we follow this, like, it's going to go away. So a lot of people are taking their money and time and energy from texting and cold calling and some of the things that are fading out, and putting into things like TV, because it's more automated and it's not going anywhere, and nobody's going to call you from TV and say, get off my TV. Like, that's just not going to happen, right?
Hot leads. They're coming to you, not the other way around. So it's interesting, because we're talking about at the same time building a thought leadership platform at the same time, being in front of the eyes. Let's get granular, if you don't mind. So, we're starting to get an idea. Okay, this stuff works, right? Now, putting into context, just for everyone who's listening, we're talking local TV, we're talking local channels. Like, what does that look like, so someone cannot really understand really what we're talking about? We're talking about buying a certain region. Like, how does it work on the media side, since you're on the other side and you're able to kind of give us a little bit of insight?
Yeah, so markets are what we call DMAs. That's what they came up with many years ago. Designated marketing area is what it's called. So for TV, you have DMAs. So when someone applies for a program and says, hey, I want to do TV, we look at different DMAs. Like I got up on the call with a guy earlier today, and he was like in between 4 DMAs, right? So he was in this area, so he could have gone to this DMA, this DMA, this DMA, this DMA. That's not usually standard. Usually it's like 1 DMA if you're in Dallas, Texas, if you're in Wichita, Kansas, where my market is, Kansas City. Like DMAs are usually big main cities, and then the surrounding areas around it, all the little markets. So when we buy media for other people, when we get people on TV, we look at their DMAs and we go to the local stations and we negotiate the best rates for them. And we use basically the formula that we've used over 9 years, and now we've used for many other investors, and plug that into the area. So we've tested different shows, we've tested different stations, we've tried prime time stuff, we've tried the cheap stuff. Like we with all of our testing and everything we've done, we know what works, and we know it works in a lot of other markets. So we basically just plug our system and our scripts and our in with other people's branding into that market, and basically get them on TV with commercials we know are effective and super inexpensive. And like I mentioned earlier, like, you know, I've had people say, man, I went to, you know, a station 6 months ago, or stations, and, you know, they quoted me 15 grand just to be on one station. And we're like, we can get you on for 5 grand on 3 stations, you know, 5 grand a month on 3 stations. So, you know, we know how to negotiate well. We know how to get the best rates. We know the cheap stuff works, and that's what we use. And so that's how we work with our clients, getting them on TV and helping them create another marketing channel, get them motivated leads, and build authority and credibility in their market.
Got it. And do you get to pick the times? Do you get to, like, how much of a say or negotiation or even leverage do you even have when you're in that position? And maybe it's your company who's negotiating that on behalf of your client, or let's say you were doing this by yourself, which again, I don't advise you to, because obviously you have an expert in front of us. But so what does that look like? Is there a good time that we're talking that you would actually negotiate for? How does that process work?
Yeah. So yeah, we take the brain damage out. Like if you went to the stations and you tried to figure out what stations to be on, what shows to be on, like the brain damage of that, people, like even the most experienced investors, I think I've talked to probably between 5 and 10 investors who said they tried to get on TV, but they thought it was too expensive, and then they didn't know what shows to be on. And like they started the process and just stopped because it was just a lot of work. There's a lot of moving pieces. Whereas, you know, we have the formula and we can just like plug it in. And so, so basically we use the same shows and stations that I have used throughout 9 years that we now plugged in many different markets that have worked as well. Can you have some say? You can, but 90% of people that we present the schedule to are basically like, okay, I trust you, let's move forward. And we get them results. You know, every once in a while we'll have someone that's like, well, maybe we should try this and that. And, you know, but, you know, for the most part, we stick to what we know works and don't, you know, get too far outside of that.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. So this is, I mean, this is fascinating. I guess I'm trying to think. So as far as getting this, you know, they can choose to work with you, and clearly it's a proof of concept. And so why wouldn't you? What is the biggest misconception, you know, that people have when it comes to actually getting into this space? And is it concern of ROI? Is it concern of longevity? Is it concern of industry? Is there a type of real estate that works better? Is it the, you know, buyer? We've all seen the signs, I'll buy your house in cash. You know, what's the you know, let's start with the misconception part first, and then I want to get into, you know, who is this best for?
Yeah, so I think we've already talked about some of the misconceptions, you know, that it's too expensive to get on TV, that, you know, if someone wants to build credibility with their face on it, that they need to memorize lines and they need to be charismatic and all that. In fact, with our program, we show you the things that we've done, that we've tested with charisma and all that, and you'd be shocked at how the results were. It's different than you think it would be, so you don't have to have a lot of charisma. We can edit the heck out of a commercial, so you don't have to be perfect, and we coach you through that whole process. Let's see, what are the other misconceptions? that it takes a long time to get results.
Yeah.
In fact, I got a text earlier today. This person is actually a big name. You'd probably know it if I said it, but I won't disclose who they are.
Mhm.
But they just started. They're in multiple markets. They started one market. They started last week. They got 12 calls their first week. They made 6 offers. They just got one deal under contract, and they're working on a bunch of others.
Mm.
I had someone text yesterday, and they started last week as well, and they got 50 calls their first week. 50 calls. I mean, they have a pretty decent ad spend in a mid to high size market, but it's like our people are getting pretty good multiples in return within 30 to 60 days.
Yeah.
So when I launched the program, I disclosed to them, like, sometimes it takes at least 3 to 6 months to get results. And I thought most of my investors would take 3 to 6 months to start getting results. And, some investors would like hit it out of the park in the first month or two, but it's actually been the other way around, where at least I would say 70% of our investors are getting multiples on their money within 30 to 60 days. And then I'm very surprised now that we've had a lot of results, that when someone, will text me and say, man, it's been 2 or 3 months and I've gotten some leads, but haven't gotten a deal. I'm actually really surprised. So the results are there, it's proven, and we're getting results very quickly.
Got it. So if I'm listening, I mean, real estate is a huge umbrella, right? You got flippers, you got wholesalers, you got commercial real estate, you got, I told you I'm in short-term rentals. Who does this work for the best, in your opinion?
Well, there's 2 main people, but I would say wholesalers number 1, because, they can get results very quickly. So as opposed to a flipper, it's good for flippers too, but wholesalers, they can see the return quickly. They can put a deal under contract, wholesale it, within a few days. I've got my very first new investor that I allowed into the program, because I was only going to allow experienced investors in. His first 2 months, he did $100,000 with their wholesale fees. And if he would have flipped those properties, it would have been, 2, 3, 4 months down the road when he got his money. So him being a new investor, him being able to wholesale those and get money quickly is very good. So wholesalers number 1, flippers number 2. And actually, even if you're a buy and hold person, people that are looking for rentals, or I'm not sure what your short-term rental model is, but we do have some landlords, I guess I call them landlords, that will fix and flip, fix properties and keep them long-term, that are finding deals that way too. So anybody who's basically looking for a discounted property, this program is definitely good for them.
That's so awesome, man. I'm blown away by the information, and I hope you are too. If you're listening, you got to plug into, what Tony's doing with his team. I got to ask you a personal question, man. Very interesting, the model that you got going on, the coaching and helping others, which is what it's all about. Leaders create leaders. As far as vertical integration, do you have any kind of, hey, if you go through this program, with us, you can also get funding. Is that how are you bridging the gap between the two? Is that something you've done? I'm just curious. You're an entrepreneur, so I got to put that out there.
No, that's great. I like it. So I run a virtual real estate mastermind group with some of the most successful investors around the country. So I've had people get in my mastermind, then they find about TV, then they get into the TV program. I've had, I actually just got off the call with someone earlier today. I'm funding a deal for that's on TV. She's a little bit of a newer investor. She's now in 2 markets on TV. So she did well with one market, bought into another market. And she actually sent me a message earlier today. She's like, actually, I need to stop ads in my second market. She's like, I'm getting too many leads I can't handle. And that's why I jumped on the phone with her, and I already was funding one deal for her. And she's like, I've got too many deals. I can't get them wholesaled quick enough. And I'm like, well, let me look at them. I'll fund them for you, fund some of them for you. So TV people are now looking at funding. And then, so I've got, the great thing about my programs is my virtual real estate mastermind, my funding, my TV program, they're pretty much all the same people. They're real estate investors doing deals. So that's one of the reasons why I'm able to do all 3 and do them pretty well, is because, I'm basically catering to the same client. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend someone starting 3 businesses like that and scaling them up, but they're all scaling fairly quickly, partly because we're able to integrate them together and speak to the same customer.
Right. And I think that's the key word that you said is integrating them together. I think, otherwise that I call it vertical integration, which I love and I'm a huge fan of, and I always like to ask that because it's literally if it's something that you're already doing and you're already doing it for yourself, you're already doing it for clients. It's just so fascinating to see that being part of the leg of your existing business. So speaking of the multiple legs that you have, I want to make sure that the audience is enough to walk away with. You talked about your virtual mastermind, didn't get a name for that. Could you give us a plug? Is it open? Is it invite only? Is this something that people can tap into if they're listening and are interested in getting into your ecosystem?
Yeah, look behind me. Real Estate Masters, that's the brand. So Real Estate Masters TV is, I call it 10x TV, because we feel like you can get in front of 10 times as many people, 10 times faster with 10 times more credibility. And hopefully at some point you'll get a 10x return on your money. So Real Estate Masters TV, Real Estate Masters is my mastermind. So realestatemasterstv.com is where you would go to apply for my TV program to see if your market is taken or not. There is some market exclusivity there. And then remmastermind.com is my mastermind. So if anybody wants to check out the mastermind, remmastermind.com. We've got a lot of high level people that are doing a lot of deals. On the low end, 20 to 30 deals a year. On the high end, 100 to 300 deals a year. It's just high level conversations we do virtually many times a month. And I just love that community because it's not just me giving my perspective and me giving to that group. It's, we have usually 15 to 20 people on any given call. Sometimes it's 25 to 30 where we're collaborating and sharing what's working all throughout the US and able to help each other in many different aspects.
That's wonderful. And then you got also the gap funding, which you had mentioned as well, that we gave an earlier plug to as well, which again, we'll tap into. And if you're driving, keep your hands on the wheel. And if you're listening, it's the Real Estate Masters, definitely want to tap into that. And as far as I want to ask you, what do you think is next? Because, we see our attention go from here to there. We talk about platforms. We're going to repurpose this episode. You guys know if you're a part of the Real Estate Experiment Network, it's on YouTube, Instagram, now TV, kind of popped up on our radar thanks to you. Where do you think the attention is going next as far as, where, if you're a marketer, if you're an investor, obviously TV is working right now. What are your thoughts though, as far as you being the entrepreneur and kind of seeing it around the curve?
So you're asking what my next thing is, or what the next thing should be for other real estate investors?
No, what do you think the next opportunities are as far as where the eyeballs are going?
And again, is that for me or for other investors?
Well, that's interesting that you're flipping that on me again, because I want to hear from your perspective where you think opportunity is as far as where the eyeballs are going for investors who are thinking about, okay, how do I target, right? That the people, is it, we talk about mailing is dying, texting is dying, whatever, right? Yeah. What do you think? Obviously TV is working right now, and that's fantastic. I'm sure you're the kind of guy who's always kind of seeing around the curve, seeing around. What are your thoughts as far as what for other investors using technology as a tool? What do you think is coming up next? Do you have any insight?
Well, here's the thing: is everything I feel like is pretty tapped out. I mean, there are some other marketing mediums where there's some space to go. If you can, like, Facebook is really tough because you can get a lot of junk, but if someone can master it, I hear some people doing well with it. But honestly, like for me, TV is something that I'm not only getting other people into, but I'm also now getting into other markets. So Wichita, Kansas was my first TV market. Then I started seeing like all my successful clients throughout the country just absolutely crushing it with TV. So now I'm doing TV in San Diego. We just started that in the last couple of weeks. And I'm in talks with many other markets to team up with other people. Actually, I just signed my first, second deal in San Diego, my second JV agreement with another investor in Louisiana, somewhere in Louisiana, where we're going to partner up on TV ads. And I'm talking with many other people. So I'm, with my clients, I get them on TV and they run the business. But now with these other markets, I'm getting more involved and sharing in the profits, sharing in the ad spend and stuff like that. So to answer your question, like, it's all about TV right now. So I have a lot of investors that are doing multiple markets with TV. So I had one guy right off the bat, basically buy 5 different markets. I've had people buy 2 to 3 markets, and then I've had quite a few people plug into one market, have really good success, and then they buy a second market and start a second market either nearby them, or they'll just virtually say, I hear that whatever city is really hot and I know someone there, or I hear it's really hard to pull lists and stuff like that. So TV would be perfect because there's not as many investors there.
Right.
So for me, it's all about TV. So if you said, hey, if you had $100,000 a month to spend, where would you spend it? I'd spend it all on TV. I'd figure out how to spend it in different markets on TV and do deals that way.
Wow, I love that. All in, all in. So all in on TV. Again, you guys check it out. So I'm going to put a plug for the link here. You got to check it out. I have here. So we have real estate. I'm going to plug in your link here because I see that there's a different URL. But as far as the real estate masters, you guys want to check them out. We'll include everything in the show notes. I really appreciate you stepping into the lab and kind of giving us the game that's a little bit different than what we're used to. I think that's what I really like about, coming on a show right here and really being able to absorb that. Because I think then we can tap into your network. And so correct me if I'm wrong, it's realestatemasterstv.com. Is that right?
That is correct. Yep.
Awesome. So I want to make sure that you guys check that out. We'll include it in the show notes. And Tony, man, we appreciate you being here. We're going to definitely keep an eye on our local stations for all that you're doing and all that you're doing for the people. But on that note, just like that, you came into the lab, you conquered, you gave us some gems. And on that note, we are out.